Hey, good morning. It's good to see you today. This is our day after podcast. My name is Philip Thomas, pastor of Journey Church here in Elgin, Texas. And this is Tom Burns with the Redeemed Idiot. We're looking at what we preached yesterday. So that's in First Peter. We're in chapter 4. You're watching this on a podcast. You can watch it through our church app. You can also watch it on YouTube or Facebook. And it's just kind of unpack a little bit more from what we talked about yesterday. So I decided I wanted to go ahead and do all of chapter 4. I could have broke it up into two. There was obvious kind of two
Two
sections
halves
to
of
it.
it, yeah.
But both of them were kind of rehashing things that Peter has already said. But the second half, he's really elevating the suffering that's going to come from it. But the first part was really, looking at what Christ saved us from, the behaviors, the way of thinking, the ideologies, the following idols of what Christ has saved us from, and he's basically saying, don't have anything to do with that anymore. Why waste time pursuing those ideologies? Right? It's time to move forward. It's time to start living a new life. Right. So what were your thoughts for, especially on this first section, and then we'll get to the next
Yeah.
section.
I thought was really cool. I think it's bringing this out because when it goes through the I mean, you made the funny joke. Well, I shouldn't say funny joke. You made the statement about the orgies and all this stuff. Like, please don't tell me. But
Yes.
I don't want to know. I mean, it was all a tongue-in-cheek sense of humor
Yes,
thing.
yeah.
But it goes to that little list, and the last thing it says is ideology. Now,
Yeah.
most people will sit here and hit each one of those other ones, which you're going to hear in a second. Like, oh yeah, we can identify. But no one really talks about the thing of idolatry
Yeah.
at the end of it. It's like, well, I'm not exactly sure what that means, or
Yeah.
I don't have a Buddha in my house, so it's not me. But it's more than that.
Way more than that. Yes. So for a time that this past suffices for doing what the Gentiles want to do, living in sensuality, passions, drunkenness, orgies, drinking parties. Okay. Now, if you're fairly honest, we see a lot of that in our society, right? Because it's just rampant. That's human nature. And whenever you unleash it and just let it go, it's going to go here. But the reason is because of that last one, and lawless idolatry. That's talking about the ideology that leads to those things. Specifically, back then, those were pagan practices.
Mhm.
The living in sensuality. There were pagan religions, and the rituals. Rather than having the Lord's Supper all together, you would participate in something very sensual altogether. That was your act of worship,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And it flowed from these pagan idol ideologies. Well, the reason we're seeing a rise in this kind of stuff is because we are now adopting the same ideology that fueled that idolatry back then. It does manifest itself differently. You just made the point. Most people are not going and bowing down at a Buddha
Right.
thing and then participating in these things because they're worshiping
Right.
Buddha,
Right.
right? It's just that we are starting to believe in these ideologies that basically push us to that place where you do what is right in your own eyes. Well, what is at the heart of that type of ideology? Well, it is that you have now made yourself God, and when you become God, then He is not.
Right. Right.
And that does lead to this type of debaucherous behavior.
Right. And like you said, back in that time, these were practices to pagan gods,
Yes.
which was in opposition to God.
Hmm.
That's that's the central theme or the principle behind it, that we can
Yes.
apply today. So yeah, we don't have a specific God today that we worship and do these things in the worship to that God. Got it.
Mhm.
That's a fair statement. That's a
Yes.
fair
Yeah,
statement.
that's true.
it's still out there. There actually is some things out there like
Uh-huh.
that. I've done some research on that, but that's beyond the
Yeah.
point. But like, I think your point, I think the point behind it is, like you're saying, is that idolatry, which is the ideologies we have today, we do things in those areas that lead us from God. You may not be worshiping and bowing down to something, an
Yeah.
ideology. And we mentioned a lot. So I'm going to say there, you look like at the LGBTQ ideology.
Yes.
There's no one within that ideology, those that follow it or believe in it, that actually get down on their knees and pray to an LGBTQ
God. Yeah.
ideological
Yeah.
God.
Right.
But you do follow that ideology that comes from man that is actually leading from God.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's, I think that's a good principle. We gotta bring the concept of idolatry, the worshiping of something else,
Yes.
is the same thing as an ideology
Ideology.
that is worshiping or pulling you from Christ, is what the literal
Yes.
transformation is
Yeah.
on
No,
this.
that's exactly right. And the reason it's important to know this is that this is going to cause tension in society. That just a little bit, right? Now, it's interesting because most people who hold on to the ideologies that actually eventually lead you away from God, they believe, I'm generalizing here, they believe that, hey, you just believe what you want to believe, I just believe what I want to believe, and we just all get along, right? That in theory works, right? If you just let people do what they want to do, you do what you want to do, and don't interact, don't just. However, it never works that way. Why? And this next verse it says, with respect to this. So, with respect to the fact that the Christians back then are now not practicing those those things that result from worshiping idols,
Right.
so they're not practicing them. At this point, they've just stopped practicing. They're new Christians. They're not actually even out just full force evangelism mode. They've just stopped participating in all of these pagan practices. But what does it say? With respect to this, they are surprised. So the pagans, they are surprised when you do not join them. So they're like, hey, we're having these wonderful orgies over here. Why aren't you? Right? Now, you would think from that point of worldview, everybody do what's right in your own eyes. Okay, well, you're just missing out, right? Why would this cause any kind of problem? Well, you do not join them in the same flood of debauchery. So, and then it says, and they will malign you. So it moves because there is within all of us, there is this little thing called a conscience, called a soul, something where we know there's right and wrong. And we
Mhm.
may have a little bit different definitions, but there's something. And in our fallen human nature, w- just the simple act of these new Christians not participating in what they were doing, that was convicting them. That the people that were still practicing those pagan things were convicted that, hey, Bob, who was part of the orgy last week, is now not. And I asked him about it, and all he did was say, well, I'm following this new teaching of Christ, and I don't think that's the right way to do it. That's all. That was convicting. People don't like to be convicted, and so they begin to malign. We do the same thing today. Whenever it's very popular to say, "Oh, you don't judge me," don't Christians, you don't judge people. Well, and some Christians are way too judgmental. I'm not saying that, but the reality is just by not participating, you are going to consider to be judging people. I mean, we see this right now. There are those that say, I'm not going to participate in this pronoun usage. I'm just not going to get into that. Right? I'm just going to call you by your name. If you're a guy and you just want to be called a she, her, I, I'm just not going to do that. I'm just going to call you by your
Right.
name. You are now considered, bless you.
Pleasure.
You are now considered, oh, you judgmental person because you won't participate in that, right? It's the same spiritual
Right.
battle from back then that we are seeing today. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes all kinds of it kinda sound like what you're saying as well. It's just things have become offensive in nature,
Yes.
which there was no intent to be offensive. Like, "No, I'm not gonna participate." It's not because I hate you.
Right.
It's just it's not something I wanna do.
Mhm.
That's not how I feel and I believe.
Yeah.
"Oh, you're being offensive, you're judging me." That
You're
you're
judging.
right, that's we what would you call that? Where we it's like we're getting too soft, too
I
feelings get hurt too easy or
Yes,
something,
we're
or
so easily offended by everything, but I think it's more the the spiritual nature of it
yeah.
that oh my, they're doing something that convicts me. That's the biggest problem. And I think that's the thing, the spiritual aspect of this, because
So
it is reminding people, oh wait, I'm doing this because I've kind of put myself in the role of God. And
So you think they're
they're
feeling an
actually,
element of guilt to it?
I think there's that.
You think
I
they
think
like
there's
it
some of
and
that.
it's just that lashing out to the other person, like, more like a deniability or something?
I think that's probably some of it.
That's it. Yeah, that
You
kinda makes sense.
may not recognize it as that, right? That's why it gets turned, "Oh, you're being judgmental, you're being bigoted," um, because we don't, in our humanness, we don't want to recognize our sinfulness, right? And so we'll do anything that we can to try to to not, and so we just change it. Oh well, that person's just being bigoted, and they're being so judgmental to me, and that's offensive to me, and we need to just stop that kind of talk, right?
Right.
So but I think that this is a spiritual thing that we're dealing with, and which means there's no easy answers, but there's only one answer. That's Jesus Christ,
Right.
right? And it's embracing the fullness of Jesus Christ, the fullness of his redemptive plan, that he has given his life for us. He has paid for all of those sins that we do in response to our false ideologies, or our false idols in this case. His sacrifice paid for all of that. But then he also calls us out of that lifestyle, because now we have replaced that idolatrous ideology of doing what is right in our own eyes with the ideology that says, no, he is King of Kings, Lord of Lords, and now I am going to live my life for him.
Right.
So we completely changed. That is the answer. That's the only way out of this. We should have laws, and we should have things against some of these really ugly behaviors. I'm not saying we shouldn't as a society, but the only way that you're truly going to break free from that is through Jesus Christ.
I've thought about that's a good point. I've thought about so if you develop laws, like you're mentioning, you can't to me, you can't lobby salvation.
No.
So even if you say outlaw, let's just do a one that's and you could actually control it. Let's say,
Mhm.
well, no, you can't control stuff, but you actually outlawed prostitution, and it could not happen in the United States. It was
Yeah.
completely stopped. Whatever. That doesn't change a person by a law
No.
because they'll still want it. So it's what the heart desires and drives. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So then we put laws in. I'm not saying it's I'm
Yeah.
not
Yeah. Yeah.
suggesting the other way. I'm just saying, even if we lobby for laws that people would consider being biblical,
Yes.
it doesn't change the person.
No.
Only Christ can do that. He's the law that is written on your heart that even amidst all this, he can pull you from it.
Yes.
Even if you remove it, you still desire
Yeah.
it.
And there are those who would say, well, you can't legislate morality. I've heard that a lot. I used to say that. No, that's actually all you legislate, in a sense, right? You make a law because you think murder is immoral. So you make a law that says you don't murder, right? You are trying to legislate on moral basis, right? But you're right, just having that law isn't going to change people's hearts.
No.
What's so so I think it's not fully accurate to say you can't legislate morality. You can to a certain degree. What you can't legislate is salvation.
You can
You
force morality,
and
but does that change a
no, that's
person's
what I'm saying.
moral?
But you can't legislate salvation.
No.
You can't force that. And so that means we're in this constant little balancing act. Okay, how far do our laws go? We do need to have moral laws, but then we do recognize that people can choose to do immoral things, and just because there's a law doesn't that's not going to change their heart.
No.
So we we have to kind of find that balance, right? And that's not easy to do, and Christians are going to disagree on that. I mean, there's Christians right now that believe that we should legalize all drugs because people are going to do it anyway, and let's put our resources in another way of fighting it. Okay, that doesn't mean that's an evil person. It's just, how do we try to apply morality in this very fallen, sinful world, right? But the most important thing is that salvation. The only way that you're going to truly change moral behavior
Mhm.
is when people give their life to Christ.
Right.
That's
Exactly. Yeah,
that's ultimately the only thing.
absolutely. Because
Um,
you go back to then, there was definitely no laws that said you couldn't do any of these things.
no,
In
no,
fact, it was more like the law was you
was
are to do
nearly
these
that
things,
you yeah,
pretty much, yeah.
yes,
And that
yes,
was, I mean, here's Peter talking to those that come out of that world,
yeah,
are still living in a world where you're supposed to do this
yes,
because you could get killed if you
yeah,
don't.
yeah,
And but to overcome that, and that
mhm,
I know you're going to go on to that
yeah, yeah,
next
yeah,
on
yeah, no,
living in that type of a world.
that's right, and that's so important there, because I believe we're basically in the same situation that here in our culture. I'm not talking about the rest of the world. I'm talking about in our culture. I think we're in the same type circumstance and spiritual place that they were right here. So
Oh yeah.
the persecution hadn't started yet, not fully. But what was happening is the Christians were starting to look very different from the society around them, and it was starting to cause tension that hadn't been there before. Now, the difference is this society was moving from a pagan society to eventually being a more godly society in general terms,
Hmm.
right? And but they're still back here at this
Oh yeah.
spot here, and what they're going to have to go through to get to it's going to escalate. The persecution is going to escalate. Okay, we started off closer to this place, right? And
Right. Right.
but what's happening is we are now moving back to here. So now we're starting to see this divide and this tension that, no, I actually believe what the Bible says about sexual ethics. And the society goes, why are you believing that? We now know. We know what the science says, that, you know, gender is fluid, and we know all of this stuff. What are you talking about? Right? And it's causing tension, right? But we're moving the opposite direction. It is possible that if we keep moving that direction, that the persecution escalates and it becomes more overt. And you're actually seeing that in other parts of the world. Our society is different. We have a different foundation, we have a different government that I believe is going to hold us off from that's brutal. I mean, we're talking about, the just the slaughter of people because they are Christian. I don't think that we're going to get to that point
Anytime soon.
anytime soon. And just I don't think that's going to happen until you're well into the tribulation. We're
Right.
talking end time stuff,
Right.
because of our society. But I do believe the persecution is going to escalate. There's going to be more and more of a temptation just to give in to the worldly way of doing things and the worldly belief. And what we're going to see, and we've talked about this before, we're already seeing rifts in families based on these ideologies that are seeping in
Hmm.
everywhere, right? That that is a form of persecution. Um, and so the the people in Peter, they were over here, they were starting to move this way, and they were going to get into serious persecution. We are right here. Sadly, we are starting to move back this way, and the tension is rising. And if we keep going, that persecution will continue to escalate until you get completely over here, right? That's if that kind of
Well,
makes
I think that
sense.
makes perfect sense, and I'll just to illustrate that because yeah, it's very well put. We've already talked about this. So there was a period in time because you're talking about our society, and like you said, you don't think the government is basically what the point is on this is going to allow it to get to a point where you know that persecution, like say of Christians, you just can go around killing them
Yeah, yeah,
sometime later.
yeah,
But what's interesting, you can see it on the horizon, and and the example is just so recent. We talked about this because there was a point in time to you just outright murder somebody what never was tolerated and always thought that was wrong.
yes.
And I'm going to bring it up, but Charlie Kirk is
That's a
killed,
good example.
and now an aspect, an ideology of government. I'm not even going to say left or right, just an aspect, an ideology that government has imposed, even through the media, that was okay.
Yes, there are people that are
So
openly saying that.
yeah,
Yeah,
so we've coming to a point where like start saying, okay, if someone's defying what I think, what I feel, what I believe, I feel that's violent. I feel that's hurting. I think this is causing these problems. That person needs to be killed. That we're starting to see it creep in to where is a point that goes back to what you're saying, to when Christians are standing up and talking against these things, that people going, hold on, I do not like what you're saying. You're pushing this Jesus crap down my throat and morality or good things or ethics or whatever. It's going to be okay to kill you because it's already been okay once.
yeah,
Like it's sliding that way.
it is. Right now, it's typically like, I mean, we have people that go in and shoot up churches today,
Yep.
right? It is very rare. Sometimes we overblow it, but it is rare. It is usually someone who is mentally unstable. You know, but as we continue to progress, there will be excuses for that mental instability. Well, yeah, they were mentally unstable. They shouldn't have done that, but they are kind of right. That church kind of is bigoted, right? That that's the slope that you're going on,
Yeah.
and that we are going on. I don't know how fast
Right, right,
that
right.
slope is going to go, and we don't live in fear of it, but we need to at least be realistic with what's going on in our world, right? And what's going on in our own society.
Right.
And that brings us right into the second half. So he ends. Peter ends that whoever serves. He talks about serving. You need to be living your life for Christ, right? And as one who serves by the strength that God supplies, in order that in everything God may be glorified through Jesus Christ. To him belong glory, dominion forever and ever. Amen. So our role is now to serve the Lord no matter the consequences, no matter what it cost us. That is what we're supposed to do. So it may be easier to not tell all of those people participating in the orgies and the stuff like that why you don't. Maybe you should say, "Hey, I'm just sick this week. I can't make it." Right? But actually, serving the Lord means that you actually tell them, no, I don't do that. And here's why. I believe that I have been saved from my sin. I believe that by participating in that, I am actually being disobedient to God. And he has saved me from that. And you know what? He wants to save you too. You bigot, you judgmental. You see what I'm saying? That becomes a major problem, right? Because evil cannot tolerate the existence of good, and so eventually it was going to escalate, and that so Peter, he's saying this is going to start off just going to kind of be a little uncomfortable, but it's going to escalate. And he said, "Beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery trial." I mean, he's not talking
Mhm.
about you're going to lose your job. He's not talking about you're going to, have some squabbles within your family. He's not talking about you're going to, kind of have some emotional distress, right? He's saying the fiery trial. Do not be surprised when it comes upon you to test you. right? And he's can I I don't think he's saying that God is going to choose, I'm going to test this person by giving them that. No, it's just going to be a test. The fiery trial will be a test, right? So be prepared for it. And it says, as though, and so don't be surprised when the fiery trial, when it comes upon you to test you, as though something strange were happening to you. I just love that. I don't know why, but it's like Peter's like, duh, if you understand the dynamics of good and evil, right? Whenever good starts to elevate, evil is going to elevate. So don't find it strange when it comes after you. And it can be very effective because guess what? Evil has the license to use tactics in the battle that we do not.
Yeah.
We cannot use the same tactics as evil does. And so there are times where you frankly have to accept the persecution. And that's a hard thing. And I'm not saying you have to be a pacifist. I'm not going there. But for example, there are Christians over in Nigeria right now that are being slaughtered. And you know what they're still doing? They're still getting up and going to church and worshiping on Sunday. And they know. And I'm sure some of them have some guards, but they know they're outmanned, they're outgunned. It's different. They can only do so much. And if the evil, basically Boko Haram, the ISIS, it is a Muslim Islamic ideology that is trying to wipe them out and doing a pretty damn good job of it. That if they show up, they are going to be more powerful. They will win that battle. And so those Christians, they could say, you know, what this,
Yeah.
we're just not going to do this. No, but they've read, I promise you, they've read this passage and they're like, yeah, this is not strange to us. We understand it because we're standing up for what is good. And right now, the tactics of the evil one, that they're overwhelming us, but we're still going to stand up for good. Right? Does that is that a good application of what
I think
this
that's a
scripture?
perfect application because we do tend in our society just think finances or something is like this trial tribulational thing that you're going through because of how you feel. I mean, I get it, but
Yeah, those are real things. I'm not
yeah,
minimizing
but this
that, but
fiery thing, this the persecution, the things that you can go through. It's a very because he's talking to these people back then
mhm,
is very extensive. It's like you may possibly die because of this. You are going to be hated. I mean, literally
yes,
hated to the point of you may have fear for your life type hate.
mhm,
And what is happening today is very resonant
yeah,
of that exact scripture. And we don't talk about this enough in this country. I don't know if the media doesn't recognize it.
yes.
Their reporters tripped off the boat and landed in the lake and had to be rushed to a hospital. They were drowning.
Yeah,
We're not talking about this.
no,
We'll talk about Israel and Hamas all day long. Two people fighting back and
yeah,
forth. Oh, I hate them. I hate this. I hate that. This is wrong. Those people. Okay, got it.
yeah,
Whatever side you want to be on. But here is peoples, a lot, thousands of peoples
yes.
that are being heads taken off, killed, raped, martyred,
Simply because they're Christian.
only because they're Christian. It's not even just because they're Christian. All they have to do is go, okay, I'll be
I'm
Muslim.
Muslim. Yeah,
Okay,
they could
go
lie.
home.
They could lie.
They definitely could lie. Yeah, Allah's God. Muhammad's yeah, okay, you're right. I don't want to be a Christian more and walk home. And it's over. It's
But
over. It's over. No, they're
they
not.
won't do it.
That's how disgusting and vile this is. And we're not even talking about
It's
just now, finally, I'll say it. Trump came out
he
like,
did.
someone will investigate this.
Mhm.
We got to see if there's something we need to get involved because this should not be happening. And
And
that's a very
right.
profound statement. And that's a very perfect example that's happening today. It's starting to elevate beyond whatever used to be
Yes.
through our recent history.
Right. No, and talking about it's just this change of perspective. Understand, and it says, but rejoice insofar as you share Christ's sufferings, that you may also rejoice and be glad when his glory is revealed. Now, let's think about what were Christ's sufferings. It was death, right? It wasn't the, oh, well, the religious leaders just didn't accept me. I just couldn't get into some of the social circles that I wanted to anymore. No, he was killed. And Peter is just blatantly saying, you have to change that perspective. If Christ died for standing up for what is right and what is truth, you may find yourself in the same situation.
True. That's
And
so true.
you
That
know,
is so true. And like you're right. You take the Christ aspect of it. So we see what's going on over in Nigeria and other parts. Well, actually, throughout all of Africa.
Sub-Saharan Africa is
Yeah,
is horrible
that
right now.
a lot of what's happening is it sounds stupid saying it this way, but simple beheadings.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, that's
yeah,
not simple, and there are rapes going on, but the death part, there's not a whole lot of extensive torture.
yeah.
It's like you don't want to believe you're dead. You're dead. But you take Christ, that was 9 hours. So the time he started getting beat in the morning to the time he actually died, in like 9 hours of beating and crucifixion and being nailed and all the things that were happening.
Yeah.
9 hours he suffered. And then you take on top of that all of his disciples.
Mhm.
They just didn't come up and go, oh, they didn't have guns, but
Right.
they weren't all just beheaded.
No.
They all went through some weird suffering. Most of them all went through something really weird and very painful and very suffering.
Yeah.
And so did their families. The ones that their families were doing it, and they would not deny Christ.
Yeah.
So Peter's making a great point, which Peter
himself
ends up having the same problem happen to. He's like, I'm preaching it, and he doesn't know what's going to happen to, but it happens to him.
It happens to him. Yeah.
And that they think that's really cool.
Yeah.
It's important to understand.
Yeah.
That point of standing up. It may get to a point it sucks. Here, okay, they hate me. They call me names. I'm a Jesus freak, or
right.
I won't do this, and I'm not talking because they have a different political stance. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
And that does suck.
Yes.
It does suck. And it hurts. It can be a hurt feeling and a fear to what's happening in the world, society. You're not accepted. But the extent that this is going.
Yeah. And I think it's important because, again, when we see what's happening like over in Nigeria, we should not be surprised by it. We should be heartbroken. We should be moved to prayer, because here's the reality: is there's not much I can do for them. Right? I don't know what the right geopolitical maneuvering is the right thing to do in this situation. I know what my emotion would say, but I don't want our military sent over there to do stuff. But yet, part of me does. I know that there's only limits of what we can do, but recognizing it, we're like, wow, this document, this Bible, it is right, it is correct, right? And going back to the tactics are different. Peter specifically gets into that. He says, if you are insulted for the name of Christ, so just for standing up for Christ, you're blessed, right? Because the Spirit of glory and of God rests upon you, right? But let none of you suffer as a murderer or a thief or an evildoer or as a meddler, right? So what is he saying? We cannot do the same, because in our humanness, we can say, you know what, if we just murder that really influential leader that's preaching all that hate against us, if we just murder him, maybe that will stop it. Now, I mean, in general, that he's not calling you as a individual believer to go murder something for the greater good.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And again, we can have lots of discussions here, but the tactics, we cannot do things in the same and do evil in order to defeat evil, right? I think that is extremely important. Then Peter continues, says, yet if anyone suffers as a Christian, let him not be ashamed, but let him glorify God in that name. For it is time for judgment to begin at the household of God, right? And yeah, well, I think we're entering into that time, and we do know that, for example, all of those who have been deceived by the evil ideology of Islam, who are cutting the heads off of Christians, they will be judged. There is no doubt, but it may not be on our timetable.
Right,
Maybe
right.
on his. But yeah, and then the last verse says, "Therefore, let those who suffer according to God's will entrust their souls to a faithful Creator while doing good." So it's basically saying just you've got to put your trust in Him and keep doing good. Keep doing the thing that is causing people to behead you.
Right.
Right? Keep doing the good. Right? Over in Nigeria, they're not being beheaded because they're standing up and trying to snuff out Islam. They're not.
No,
They're, they're just trying to do good
they're
and worship
scared of them.
God. Yes. Now I have no doubt that if they if they could get enough strength, they would at least push back, and that I think that would be a righteous action to try to
To protect
destroy.
your own life? Yeah,
Yes,
you have the right to protect your
of course,
life.
but they're not in position to really do that. But they're going to still stand up for good, which by standing up for good means that they are calling out the evil of what the Islamists are doing.
Right.
And that's just going to continue to fuel the hate against them. But we entrust our souls. I loved how it says that you entrust your soul. So is kind of this indication that your physical body, you're not entrusting your physical body to the Creator because it may be destroyed.
Right, right.
You're entrusting your soul so that even if your body is destroyed, your soul is with Him, right? And so you just keep doing good. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it makes perfect sense. I hope anybody that's listening is realize this isn't a Bible study.
Yeah,
Just a little walk through the scripture Bible study thing, like just kinda like a feel good thing,
yeah,
that look this stuff up. I mean, the accuracy and the truth behind this is so evident and so pure and so true. I mean, even today's archaeological evidence proves that this thing is accurate.
yeah.
You know, Science is proving it is, and that wasn't even its intent.
Right.
And so with that, I mean, if you really took your own honest, earnest thing, like, okay, I'm going to do my own research, find out, man, there's this thing that does have truth, that maybe there really is a message behind this. And there is a message behind this, because eventually it's going to come to a point. It's going to be bad or it's going to be good,
Mm-hmm.
and Peter and all these disciples were not just out there just talking to write a cool book and try to change people.
Yeah.
And then they just hid in the shadows, like,
Yeah.
all these people believe what I want them to believe,
Yeah.
not for what they went through.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason they did what they did.
Yeah.
And to see that the things that they were dealing with back then are the same things we're starting to experience on an elevated level now,
Yeah.
is remarkable.
Yeah.
And most people agree with the term history repeats itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically repeating itself.
Yeah.
Not 100 years ago, more like 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
It's repeating itself.
Yeah.
So
No,
you should have an element of concern. If you don't believe in God and Christ, still should be a little bit of element of concern. Like, okay, historically this was happening, and now it's kind of happening again.
Yeah.
And it's funny, some of it's in the same places that happened back then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Take a look at it for what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And make that decision.
Yes.
Do you truly believe what Scripture says? That and are you willing to stand up for what is good and true and beautiful, what is godly, even when society around you completely disagrees, even to the point of open persecution, like we're seeing in sub-Saharan Africa?
Right.
Right. We have had it so easy in our country, and we shouldn't feel guilty about that, because
No.
because it's a result of actually applying these biblical principles
Yeah.
as real as we could, led to us
Right.
having this type of freedom.
Right.
Now we're going the opposite direction, which is heartbreaking and sad. But which is why we need to keep standing up for what is right and what is good. And it has become very easy for us just to say, well, I just believe this about God. I believe that you do need to believe in Jesus Christ. But if you don't believe that, that's okay. No, we need to be pretty firm and say, no, it is only through Christ that redemption is found. It just because you go to church and just because you read the Bible doesn't mean that you're going to be found in heaven for eternity. No, it's about what Christ has done. But understand that statement is now a controversial statement, because it is a convicting statement. Because there are many people who want to do it in in their own eyes. Hey,
Right.
I like the Christian faith, certain aspects of the Christian faith, right? And so I'll apply one here and one here and one there, but it really makes me uncomfortable to say that my really good friend John down the road, who's a really good guy and he does a lot of good things, you telling me that he's going to be separated from God forever? Well, yeah, if he hadn't accepted salvation from Jesus Christ, yeah, that's what we're saying, right? Well, that can start breaking relationships, and we're at that point now in our society. So hold on to what is true. Um, I, I don't think we're going to be having our heads cut off just yet, uh, and I don't want people to go to that extreme.
No, no,
But
no, no.
just recognize that the direction that the Bible shows, that's how we've seen it play out in history. And but thankfully, we also know who is victorious. We know that even those who do the evil will receive judgment. That God is it will not go unpunished. That things will be made right.
Mm.
But our desire should be that all come to know Jesus Christ, right? And to do that, we have to know what is true, and we have to stand up for what is true, no matter what. So,
Yeah.
all right. All right. Well, we're gonna wrap up First Peter next week, and then we'll probably get into Second Peter here pretty soon.
All right.
But it's good to see you today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
See ya.